Welcome to Talking Early Years, a showcase training podcast with Ellen Roberts
and Gemma Carr. Hello and welcome to today's Talking Early Years podcast. On this episode, we're going to be discussing use of technology in early years, and we have got our special guest, Lauren. Lauren, hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
All right, thank you. All right. And Ellen, how are you today?
I'm very well, thank you, Gemma. And just a little bit of news for our listeners. I know the introduction does say Gemma Carr, but Gemma has recently got married. Congratulations! So welcome, Gemma Green.
Thank you. It still feels very bizarre. I'm still forgetting my name.
I was telling you yesterday, I saw your email come through in Gemma Green. I was like, who's that? Who's that person?
I think
And you get
everyone's
like a
done
letter, and it says like, "Dear Mrs. Green," and I get it with Mrs. Roberts, and I'm like, who?
Do you still think that now?
I'm like, oh, Mrs.
2
Grown
years
Up.
later.
So yeah, that's it.
So bizarre.
Adult world, isn't it?
Yeah.
Adult
So
life
weird.
now.
Oh,
Yes, exciting news.
very exciting. Very exciting. So, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us on our podcast this morning. Tell us a little bit about your background and your role here at Showcase.
So thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm the senior administrator at Showcase. So my role is a bit of everything really. So I do a lot of marketing. I do the social media, the website, all the marketing sort of content materials that we have. And then I also do a lot in sales. So I support with enrollments and sales calls and things like that. And then also I'm training to be a tutor at the moment. So I've got 2 learners currently. And yeah, I feel like my job sort of encompasses everything really.
Love that. And you've come from an early years background. So you did an early
Yeah.
years degree.
Yeah. So I feel like I've sort of done child development and childcare sort of my whole life really. So I've got 2 young nephews that really sort of pursue my interest in working with children. And then at school, I did child development as a GCSE, and I really enjoyed that. That was my favourite subject at school. And then when I was at college, I did health and social care. It's not directly related to childcare, but I still think that had elements that could overlap as well. And then I initially started doing primary ed at university, but I just decided that teaching wasn't really for me in the end. So I switched my course to childhood and youth studies, and I did that at the University of Winchester. And in my years, I worked in lots of different nurseries. I worked in a nursery as bank staff while I was at uni, and then I worked at Southampton General Hospital's nursery for a few years as well. And yeah, now I'm at Showcase, and I've been here for the last 3 years.
Amazing. Such a good conversation today then.
I didn't realise that you started uni at doing primary ed, Lauren. I thought you went straight in at
Yeah, I was only there for a week, but it just wasn't for me. It was always something I really wanted to do, and I always saw myself as a teacher. But then once you actually, start doing the modules and things, I was like, I just can't see myself as this anymore. And I felt like I was a bit restricted as well doing primary ed. And if I did childhood and youth, it opened up so many more doors in terms of all these child development roles and things like that. Yeah. So it's led me to where I am today. So I'm very grateful.
Now you're teaching, but just in a slightly different way.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's so lovely with careers and different pathways. You had the sort of idea that you wanted to be a teacher, but that wasn't necessarily that formal kind of primary school teacher kind of route that you assume is the only route really. Wasn't quite for you, but now into the tutoring world where it is teaching but in a very different way.
Yeah, I didn't even know this role really existed at that point. I think if I did know that back in school, I would try and aim for that. But yeah, it's kind of like teaching, but in a different way, isn't it? More sort of one-on-one, but smaller groups rather than a larger group of younger children. Yeah, exactly.
There you go. So you've got come into education, but through a bit of a different
a bit of a strange route.
Nice.
All right.
Destiny.
Yes, definitely.
So we asked you onto the podcast today, Lauren, because you've got a bit of experience with technology, haven't you? Well, not with technology like you build it, but as in you've kind of done some research, some studies on it. So can you talk us through kind of what your background with technology in early years is?
Yes, I just think, technology is just so integral to everyday life now. So, in our work lives and in our personal lives, it's just everywhere. So it's always a topic that's just really interested me. Back in school, I was fascinated by technology. I did ICT Cider as a GCSE as well, which is like website making and things like that. So it's just always really interested me, to be honest. And then when I did my degree, I decided to do the impact of technology on mental health. In particular social media and that impact that has on mental health. And I think sort of my personal experience with social media and sort of the impact that it had on my personal mental health and things like that, it just was a topic that I really wanted to find out more and research about. So yeah, I did my dissertation on that a few years ago. Still got it. I found it the other day and it was just such like a big document. I was just wow.
So much work goes into it, and then all of a sudden it's a distant memory, and you think,
exactly. And I'm so fascinated by how it just evolves over the years as well, from where it was a few years ago when I was at uni to like where it is now with AI and things. It's just constantly changing and constantly evolving. I just find it so fascinating. Yeah.
We were saying the other day, we've just got a Ring doorbell at home, and like when I go out in the morning, my husband talks to me through it, and I said, can you imagine explaining this like to your grandma or to a Victorian person, like that we talk to each other through the doorbell? Like it's crazy.
I mean, just a doorbell. They wouldn't have even had a doorbell, would they? Especially Victorian times, there wasn't even a doorbell.
Like knock
You're like, what on earth? Crazy. So when we think about tech in early years, is there kind of legislation that we think about when looking at using tech of any kind, really?
Yeah, there is. So one thing that it's not UK legislation. I highlight this is not UK legislation. However, one big thing, and this is probably going to spark a whole lot of conversation for a lot of people, but especially us today, is going to be thinking that Australia has the new legislation that they've just passed through, setting a minimum age limit for social media platforms. So that includes Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and X. So now you must be over 16 years old to have any of those accounts, which is a big topic. It's a big conversation. It's taken a lot to get to that.
I was doing the newsletter for this month and I spoke about this news story in that newsletter. And I was looking at sort of the UK's response to that. And it was quite interesting to see that so many parents were in favour of having a similar law in the UK. I think they asked parents 3 years ago whether they would support it, and about 40% or more said they would, but now it's gone up to about 60 or more percent. So it's just really interesting to see how that will affect sort of law in the UK, to be honest.
A really tricky topic, and I know we've spoken about it on our safeguarding podcast as well, but there's pros and cons. I think I hear a lot more of teenagers nowadays not using it, and it's almost like a bit of an ick, and it's like not kind of a thing. But I also kind of feel like how do you police that?
Absolutely.
We've have spoken about the porn laws in the UK and like with the age restrictions, and at the same time VPN usage went up. Kids are savvy, if there's a will there's a way. So I just don't know how enforceable that would be in the UK. I don't.
I think they'd find ways to bypass it.
Yeah,
for sure.
100%. So I think it would be a difficult law to put in, but I do think there needs to be a bit more content restriction.
It's such an integral part of children and young people's lives. So just to take that away completely, it's going to be very tough.
Very. But
I think it's interesting because obviously, they've obviously done it in Australia, so it would kind of be a how have they made it work? And I think it might be a case of riding the first year and observing how Australia have done it. And then I think it might be a case that other countries could follow and kind of go, well, it's done this in this country.
Yeah. Be interesting to see the long-term impacts of it.
Oh, massively. It must have a positive impact. There are obviously positive sides to social media, undoubtedly, but at that age, do you really need it?
When you're in school?
Like everything, I think the biggest issue is the peer pressure element.
100%, absolutely.
As soon as
And
one
the
of
fact
them gets it, they all want to have it, and
and
all
you
those
can't
sorts of
switch
things, isn't it?
you can't switch off from it, you know.
No.
That was the nice thing when obviously we were growing up and that it wasn't really an option. So you had that break and you had that quiet time, the reflection time, and your brain's not constantly stimulated like it is now. And I just think at that age, it's just so impressionable.
Yeah. That was quite a big topic in my dissertation as well. So the impact on self-esteem and things, and looking at on Instagram and seeing celebrities' profiles and comparing yourself to them. That was a massive topic that I focused on. And yeah, I just think that just fuels that sort of low confidence and low self-esteem and things. Yeah.
So in the UK, we have our own sort of version of the controls with the Online Safety Bill 2023. So it's an emerging bill, actually. I think it changes and moves and flexes as you would expect, really, with any piece of legislation. So obviously the porn restrictions came into that as well. But that looks at reducing the risk of harm online, and with the emerging threat of AI and the safeguarding risk that is posing. We also have our Keeping Children Safe in Education 2025. I like to put in the date because it does update every year. When we ask people, have you noticed any legislation updates lately? Always keeping children safe in education. There's always something. And part of it was in 2024, part of the safer recruitment requirements on that is to do an online check of people now. So you have to declare it at the advertising stage that you will be doing that, but we do a social media check on people and just look at kind of who they are as a person and any kind of red flags on in terms of conduct or things that they're saying online. You know, it forms a massive part.
Groups that they're part of, those sorts of things as well.
Pages they've liked and things like that. It's really interesting. Yeah.
And then, of course, we've got our GDPR 2018 as well. I think people forget with tech that you have privacy laws in the UK to protect your identity and protect your personal data. So GDPR comes into it as well. In practice, though, how do we see it in the EYFS? What is there in the EYFS around tech?
There's nothing. So the short answer, there's nothing in the EYFS about technology. Sure, you've got within your specific areas, there is a sort of a literacy element and the use of technology. But similarly, the EYFS was created not before all of this technology, but before technology was so vast and so big. So within the EYFS, there's sort of a literacy criteria that talks about the child's use of technology. But when it talks about that, it's not solely how a child uses an iPad or how a child uses technology like we see technology. The use of technology can also be the element of like a cause and effect. So like a push and pull toy or a buttons, like a toy with buttons. So it could just be, you know, like what I think of when I think of button toys could be a story, and you've got the sounds down the side.
Oh my gosh, quite
that can also be like a use of technology.
I don't know if this is the right word, but almost quite primitive technology, like in terms of how we look at it. We're thinking,
or
even
even
like
and stuff like that.
And
absolutely. And even like the you know, like you get the four little colours and there's like an elephant in one box and you press the red button and they pop up like that again. You're pressing buttons, the children pressing buttons, and that is kind of can also be an element of technology. So that sort of that cause and effect. So in the EYFS, you've got your safeguarding legislations. You've now got your healthy eating guidance legislations within it that's been added this year. But there is nothing officially stipulating around technology. However, you have got every setting. We've spoken about it in our safeguarding shorts when we were talking about child safeguarding practice reviews. And every setting has got a mobile phone policy. So that comes from a separate legislation, and that is from the Vanessa George case. Use of mobile phones. So there is no use of mobile phones in settings. And one thing I want to make clear to everyone listening, all of you, is that if a parent comes into the premises on the phone or their phone rings and they go to answer it, you have every right to say, I'm sorry, you need to step outside. You can't take that phone call here.
It applies to everyone.
And even if it's a voice call, you know, still, that is the use of a mobile phone. That is not acceptable. Please, can you take that outside? That is your policy. That is your procedure. Please ask them to
I
step
actually
away.
noticed that in a nursery we went to yesterday, that at the reception there was a mobile phone policy at the door.
Yeah.
So see, that's for parents when they come in, you know, to make them aware that they can't use their phone whilst they're going to collect their child or pick up their child and things. Yeah.
Absolutely. So every phone has the mobile phone policy. Some and everyone's. I mean, ultimately, everyone's is exactly the same. No mobile phones in the rooms or in the setting. However, every setting could be slightly different of how they manage that. So some people say they can stay in your locker or stay in your bag in the staff room, whereas some settings they are put into the office in a locked box and they stay there until you're on your break or things like that. And equally, that mobile phone policy also integrates into, because a lot of nurseries are using the family app, the EY app, whatever it is, different apps to communicate with parents and record observations and things like that. That will also include use of iPads and tablets, will be inclusive within that mobile phone policy, will be that technology as well. And most of those iPads and tablets have been stripped bare kind of thing. So they have got the bare minimums on them, and privacy settings on them have been set. But again, regarding safeguarding, and you in setting needs to be thinking about, why is that iPad being taken into the bathroom? There's no need for that to be taken into the bathroom. And again, a lot of settings, if they've got a separate bathroom, have got signs on the doors that say, make sure you leave the iPad outside or something like that. Because sometimes people have them on like lanyards, so they can just be on their hip, take a photo of the child, whatever they're doing. But you can forget to do that if it's on you the whole time to go to do a nappy change. So being conscious to remove that before you go into the nappy changing area, / if you see people with it on them, just politely remind them, don't forget to take your iPad off.
Yeah, absolutely. And things like emerging tech with smartwatches or meta glasses, that kind of thing as well. I suppose it's always a policy that needs to be revised frequently.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's quite interesting to see different settings have different rules, and you know, like smartwatches and things. Like some settings are really strict about it, but others are a bit more flexible. As long as you have your notifications turned off and things like there's no camera on there or anything like that, a lot of settings do allow them, but it just depends really.
But again, being devil's advocate here, Lauren, like it's one button that you got. Oh yeah, look, I've turned off notifications. Carry on wearing it. Turn on.
100%, I agree.
You know, like. That can't be, again, talking about policing things, you can't police that. Absolutely. The only way to police that is no. Take it off, leave it. If you need that watch on at all times, leave it in the staff room. Or, you know, I do understand that I haven't worked in settings, sorry, I've seen in a setting a child who had a mobile phone on her in a little bag. A child had it because she was diabetic. So it beeped with her levels. So with her diabetic levels, it beeped and the staff would check the phone and make sure. But she had a separate policy to say that she was allowed to have it on her at all times. I mean, she had no use. She didn't use it. She never got it out. It was only if it beeped and it was like that warning signal. So again, as a member of staff, if you have something like that, you need to be making that very clear to management why, and there needs to be a policy specifically for you to be put into place for how that can be managed and used.
Yeah, definitely.
Because ultimately it all comes down to safeguarding.
Definitely.
Like everything we talk about on our podcast,
Always
it all
comes
boils down to
down.
safeguarding.
It does.
It's quite interesting, you know, like working with parents alongside this as well. You know, like when a child gets signed up to a nursery, you need to make sure that they're allowed to take photos of them to put on like the nursery social media or to put on tapestry and things like that. You need to get parental permission for that. So I think, you know, working in partnership with parents for technology use is so important, you know, because this is their baby at the end of the day. You can't be sharing pictures of them online without their permission. And, you know, it's so important that we do work alongside them with technology.
Absolutely.
When that first came out, Lauren, about Facebook photos,
Mm-hmm.
all those things. I remember people being like, well, why wouldn't, I mean, it's ridiculous. One child in the room who can't be on Facebook. That's so unfair, isn't it? And now there's been the shift. Now there's like 2 children in a room who are allowed on Facebook, and you know, those kind of things. So there has been a big shift in that. And I think again, a lot of nurseries are, when it comes to taking group photos, they are doing like a straight down shot, so you've got children's hands in it but no faces, or it's always a photo of the back of them, so you can't actually identify the child.
I remember at a nursery I used to work in, we obviously had children that had parental permission to take photos, but then there was a group that didn't. And when we took pictures of the children that were had permission to be in social media, there was a board behind them that said their names. So it had the full names of the children, and that was put on social media by accident.
Oh, God.
You've got to be so careful with what's in the background and what's on the displays and things, making sure there's no full children's names or date of births, things like that. You just got to be so careful, you know, not just looking at the children's faces, but everything in the room as well.
Absolutely,
You've got to be so careful.
Absolutely.
I know we've spoken before about my bugbear at back to school photos that parents put online with their child, the full name and the logo of the school in the jumper, and I'm like, oh my gosh, please stop. You have to be so careful nowadays. It's sad, but better be safe than sorry.
100%.
I know we're slightly tainted, our view, but
yeah, exactly.
Well,
our brain's always on safeguarding.
Absolutely, always in safeguarding mode.
And it should be for all of us.
Absolutely, hypervigilance. So how can technology be utilised in the early years? What do you use it for?
So we use it day to day with the children. So I know there's some separate tablets that children can use for these interactive games, you know, interactive whiteboards, all of those type of things. But I also think it's quite interesting that these games that they play, they don't really spark the children's, you know, creativity or imagination, because there's often like an end goal with the games. It's not really open-ended play, if that makes sense. So, you know, if they play with you know, toy sets, or if they play with the art area or anything like that, they can be creative and they can think of their own ideas. But with these apps, it has one main goal, which I think is quite interesting. So we do try to limit the use of, you know, tablets and things in the setting, like I think only on certain occasions. Yeah, like I said, we do have that interactive whiteboard as well, but mainly that's used by the practitioners, and then, you know, the children will like put their hand up and answer a question or something like that.
Or sometimes with the interactive whiteboards, they just have it as like a do you remember Paint?
Yeah,
the paint
exactly.
screen, and literally the children can just use it as a drawing station or things like. So it's not
cool.
they're not doing anything. They're not doing an activity. They're not doing a game, like you say. You know, it's not a set game. It's not a video. It's not an anything. It's literally just a white screen, and they can just draw all over it, and they're using it like a easel sort of thing.
Yeah, definitely. So that can be good for, you know, creativity and imagination, definitely. Also can be used by practitioners when making resources like displays. Also really important, you know, for children who do have additional needs and prefer material visually, so making like visual timetables and things like that. So you can use technology to adapt all these resources and make new resources for children that need things adapted in a different way as well.
That's a really interesting point. And with our inclusivity and how do you embed E&D into your daily practice, that question comes up quite often. But that's a really useful way of how you do it in practice. You may celebrate Lunar New Year's, and you might then show children pictures, and you'll be using technology to find recipes that you might be wanting to make, or music and things like that as well. And
100%. I feel like, you know, just for thinking of ideas for activities, like Pinterest and TikTok, so useful. Especially TikTok. When I was doing my early years educator qualification, to think of activity ideas, it can be a little bit difficult. But you just find so much inspiration online, I think. So it's a really good tool for that.
I even like getting them involved in little dance trends and things like that would be quite cute as well.
Yoga and things like that. Yeah, definitely.
So I remember one of my core memories with relating to technology and use. We had use of the iPads, but it was for like the family app, the communicating with parents, uploading observations, and we were talking about. It was completely. I was in a very child-led setting. All of our planning was based on schemas. And we got onto, I was in the toddler room, young toddler room, so walkers to 2, and a child we were talking about animals. We had the animals out, and we were talking about noises of animals, and you do the usual, you do your monkey and you do your elephant, and then they held up a giraffe, and I was like, I don't know what noise a giraffe makes.
Oh my goodness.
And I was sat there for ages, and I was like, what noise does a giraffe make? So then I ended up on YouTube. We were watching videos of noises of real life giraffes. That was how I sat there. And again, so using YouTube to see those real life videos, children aren't going to see a real life giraffe. So actually to see them, and then we kind of were going down the obscure animal route, and kind of were like, well, what noise does I don't know, an anteater make, or a this or a that, and we were looking at all these different animals. And again, for that, there was no way my brain could tell me what noise these animals were making.
No
so
way.
But also they were able to see what an actual animal looks like, rather than a cartoon version or a pretend version sort of thing. So actually seeing the real life, what an actual real life giraffe looks like, and the actual size of it against a tree or those kind of things as well. So I remember using it quite a bit for those kind of things, when you're just going, but what noise does that make?
Because they wouldn't usually experience these things, so you're giving them access to a whole new world.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really thought of it that way. I've got to ask you, Gemma, what noise does a giraffe make?
Thanks, Helen. I needed that.
I thought that was it then.
Go for it. Go on.
It's it's a bit like a moo, I suppose. It's a bit of
We don't say much on this podcast, so we never quite know which direction it's going to go in.
One thing I've taken away from today.
Yeah, there you go.
What does a giraffe make?
Every day's a school day, girls.
Absolutely love that. How funny. But yeah, we spoke about it on a podcast. I can't remember which one it was now, but we were saying about the age at which children kind of start to look at things in a different way and learn. And we were saying it's sort of see, an animal is big, it's got 4 legs, and assume every animal with 4 legs is a horse. And it's at what stage they then actually start to differentiate between animals. And that's something I've never really thought of with tech, is actually showing them in their environment, giving them that sense of scale and proportion that you wouldn't get, and you kind of underestimate as an adult. We know because we've seen them in zoos or on TV or whatever, that a giraffe is massive. But if you've got a giraffe toy, an elephant toy, and a rabbit toy, they're all the same size.
Scale.
So they always are. It always stresses me out. A rabbit's the same size as a hippo and things.
You don't know as a child that they're not to scale.
Exactly.
I've never thought of it that way.
So one other thing that I also from personal experience in nurseries have used technology is signs when we're out and about, or you'd be going out on walks and things like that, and road signs or things like that. Again, kind of looking at the different signs before you go, it's just opening up those real life experiences for the children. And kind of seeing the things that they would see on a day-to-day basis, and kind of go, what is that, or questioning that, or make it again. It's we talk a lot about that curiosity and in imagination for children, and it's making their curiosity into what they're seeing kind of every day. Absolutely. But also storytelling. I remember we sometimes it could be used for a meditation in preschools after lunch. Put on a meditation app, which sometimes you could share the video of with the children, or it could just be they lay down on the carpet and close their eyes and they just use it as a listening tool. But that can be also very good with the children, and is sort of a way of doing it.
It made me think of all the technology that we use. We actually use it so much in nurseries, more than we think. We think of those tablets, but then it is the everyday things that we do as part of our just daily routine, to be honest.
Absolutely right.
And I was also just thinking about how sort of technology is used in terms of security and things. So in my previous nursery, we did have a finger scan system on the door, and I didn't really think of it. That is technology, and that's
Yeah.
helping support those safeguarding procedures and those safeguarding policies and things like that. And obviously that's working in partnership with parents as well, because they'll need their own finger scan system to get into the building as well. So yeah, it's just embedded everywhere, really, when I think about it.
It is.
There was I also thinking also on storytelling. Someone spoke to me. I'm not going to give my opinion on it, but you could probably all know my opinion on it. Using ChatGPT to create stories as bedtime stories for children. So for your child, you can put in there, create a story about Lauren, who is a princess and a dragon tries to come and get her, create a story for me with a happy ending or something like that. And it's that, which I think it's a resource to be used. But could it be taking away the parents, the adults' brain matter, removing the adults' ability to just be with their child and pretend, make up a story,
and interact and develop the story based on the child's emotions and their reaction, and
let the child get involved as well.
Absolutely, build that story together. Don't know that end point of the story, build that together. It's a bonding opportunity. It's not just sit down and read a story.
100%.
So yeah, there's quite a lot of ways that they can be used, and like Lauren said, the interactive whiteboards, and kind of I've also seen with the interactive whiteboards people using them for YouTube videos for like yoga classes or things like that, like exercise classes, things like that can be used. And again, I think as long as they are okay, we'll do one video and then we're done, and we're all going to be involved and we're following the actions, and then we're stopped, turn off, carry on, go back to your everyday. There is a place for it.
Alexa at my previous nursery, actually.
And then in nursery
we had lots of rules on it because the children ended up just speaking to it themselves.
Exactly.
So obviously we had to be strict rules around it. But that was also used alongside these like dance videos and things like that. So it can be used as a good tool for physical activity as well and things. So yeah, definitely.
And of course, from our perspective, it's useful for coursework and study as well for our learners or anybody doing a course or extra online modules. It could be your annual refresher training that you do online. But we speak about using it for study, engaging with parents on social media or newsletters and that kind of thing, sharing ideas and updates. So it's a really useful tool for building relationships with parents and educating parents as well.
Definitely in terms of like Tapestry and the family app like you were talking about. That's how you share information. You share these updates with parents and
you gain information from 100%.
It. Yeah, because parents can use it to also send a message if they forgot to tell the practitioner during handover. They can just pop a little message on there. So it's so good in terms of communication. You don't always have to give the parents a call anymore. You can just send them a little update, or you can let them know there's been an accident through the app as well, and things like that. So it is a really good tool in that sense for communication.
Much more in the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
One thing I've also experienced with technology and kind of being beneficial for the child is I've worked with children in the past who we have put on IEPs. So they individual learning plans, individual education plans. They were used to be learning plans. And so often they are used if you've got a child who has a delay, whether that's speech and language, physical, it's a support plan that you're working with that child to kind of bring them back up to scratch, and also is something that can be used should you need to refer the child as well. So I've had it before with children who have been non-verbal in setting, and the parents go, but they talk at home. And I go, I haven't seen it, so I can't, a bit like our job, we can't, unless we see it, we can't see it as evidence kind of thing. So I've had to say to parents, look, if they're having a conversation with you, record it you know, film them having the conversation or film them talking, so that I can see that, and I can see that as evidence that they are able to have the conversations, or they are, you know, because it's if they were sort of mute both home and setting, then we would have concerns. However, if, you know, it's knowing what their abilities are and those kind of things. And is it a personal social that they're actually just really shy in nursery?
Yeah.
Or is it a communication issue?
You can gain insight into their home life.
Yeah,
through,
absolutely.
You know, we really encourage parents to upload their own observations and their own activities and things, and we can see what they're up to at home, and you know, we can use their interests from home in the nursery as well. So we just really, emphasize the importance of parents uploading onto like Tapestry and Pet Family and things like that as well, because it is so important.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. So what, on all the things that we've spoken about, we've kind of touched on it as we've gone through, but what are the issues? What are the pitfalls? What are the concerns?
Safeguarding, isn't it? I think that's the primary one for me. But in terms of a lot of different aspects of safeguarding, so one being the personal safety of the children, and especially in things like cyber attacks. We just had the kiddo cyber attack in the autumn, where the online app that they were using, similar to Tapestry Family, that kind of thing, was hacked and then held at ransom. It then actually backfired on the people that did it, because you're selling children's photos and ID. There is a moral line that there's been crossed. Those cyber attacks are an emerging threat. We, at the moment, so one of our awarding bodies is undergoing a significant cyber attack. They've been offline for, God, it must be 2 weeks now. It's a significant issue. So having an awareness of that is really important, as well as things like your privacy and GDPR. In terms of safeguarding, it's not just protecting from abuse and harm. That's absolutely an aspect of safeguarding, but there's also that privacy aspect as well. So something that you mentioned earlier about, you know, using ChatGPT for stories, is that over reliance, I think, on technology as well, and that creativity,
imagination, and
thinking in the moment.
It's a strong word, but it's just a laziness.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
Ultimately, what it comes down to. But then I will argue that, because I have had conversations with people where they go, but I had a very different upbringing to what my child has, and the person I was talking to said that because they had quite an abusive upbringing, they never experienced imagination. They never experienced that. So for them as an adult, they don't know how to do it. And they don't know how to they haven't learnt that as kind of as a skill or whatever. So again, it's kind of thinking, yes, maybe as a starting point, but equally as
a prompt.
Looking at it in that sort of way, like for children who, you know, might not necessarily have access to storybooks and things like that. It opens up a new world for them.
Yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's absolutely.
Yeah, that cultural capital that we kind of assume everybody has, you know, but actually, do they have access to storybooks and tech and that kind of thing? Or
I mean, most parents have a phone.
Yeah.
One or the other of parents will probably have a phone. So again, to access ChatGPT or Copilot or whatever AI program that you use, you will have that on your phone, whether you've got a laptop or not, or whether you've got storybooks in the house, whether you've got access to a library, whether, you know, all those things, but you've got that on your phone.
Children might be losing, you know, sitting with their parent, actually looking through a book, looking at the images, you know, turning the pages, and supporting their sort of fine motor skills, all of those type of things. If the parent is just reading off their phone, you know, that they're not exposed to the images associated with the book, and I wonder if that might impact their creativity and their imagination as well. But then maybe they'll start thinking for themselves what the book is telling them. But I don't know, I just like, you know, the children sat down with a book and actually planning the pages themselves, that physical action, if that makes sense. And that's incorporating that physical development, you know, understanding the world, all those type of things. So it's interesting.
So there is kind of another issue that comes with it, and it's not It's not an issue of the child using the technology,
Mm.
but it's the issue of the mother or the parent using technology, in that if you are breastfeeding a child and you are scrolling on your phone whilst breastfeeding, that is one of the core moments to build attachments between you and your baby, is during breastfeeding. Making eye contact, having those moments together.
Yeah, you're not interacting if you're
Is
just
cool,
scrolling.
but if you're scrolling, equally, if you're sitting on the sofa and the child's playing and you're just scrolling on the sofa, the child's going to go, well, you don't care. You don't want to spend time with me, so I'll do my own thing. I won't bother talking to you because you're not going to reply to me because you're too busy staring at your phone. Your obsession as a parent is going into your phone. The child, again, we're kind of verging on a little bit of neglect here. You know, it makes you think. It makes you think of neglect. If a child is being ignored because their parent is scrolling, then that child's going to go, I'm going to seek comfort and care and affection and interaction from something / anything else. And equally, again, if a child grows up seeing their parent constantly scrolling, that's what the child learns an adult is.
Absolutely, that's the first thing they reach for. They can't self-regulate themselves. They, you know, even at meal times, it's my biggest bugbear. I'll sit in front of the iPad just to stay quiet. That's lazy.
But why should meal times be quiet? What this is massive thing for me.
Conversations about it.
Why should meal times be a quiet time? Meal times are in place for socialization.
Talking about your day and things like that. Yeah.
And then they wonder, you know, parents wonder why they are so distracted by the tech that, of course, they don't want to eat. That's a secondary thing at that moment in time. Of course it is. Drama I bang a lot is children accessing adult content. And what we mean by adult content, and I don't just mean sexualized content.
No.
You know, and that could be from explicitly sexual things to sexualized things. So, you know, images, you know, online catalogs and music videos and things like that. The less obvious things, but adult related content with concepts and things that they don't yet understand. You know, things like the news and access to age inappropriate materials. I think that is a big pitfall. And probably one of the main pitfalls I see with people using tech with their child is that you forget that as an adult they don't understand what you understand. You have got years and years and years and years and years on them. So then, you know, they don't understand that a giraffe is massive, you know, is it, or what a road sign is. They've never seen it before. Or I remember my mum was saying that when I was born, my brother's older than me, and they took him home and he was fascinated by the streetlights because he'd never seen them before, because he was always in bed before the streetlights went on. And you know, it's that sort of innocence that we have a duty to protect and to educate, but to protect them from that adult or older child content.
The thing I think of when you say that is sarcasm. Children don't understand sarcasm. They don't understand that. So that is, you know, and some people, you know, we're British. It's quite a British thing, isn't it, to have sarcasm? But children don't understand that. So if you are quite a sarcastic person, you kind of need to rein that in a little bit when you're with children. And again, that can be something, whether that's in films, even programs, if that coming, children don't understand that. And that is an adult thought process of what sarcasm is.
That's it, and that's based on experience, you know, that they, of course, they don't have that yet. They are literal, they are sponges, you know, they're taking it all in.
You've got to start looking at things through their eyes, haven't you? And seeing what the world is like from their perspective.
It takes a long while for them to learn what a joke is. You know, and learn
humour and things.
So how can we support parents then? This is obviously a massive factor, tech in early years. What can we do to help them?
I personally think, you know, again, you know, working alongside parents, communicating with them, sharing information with them about how we can support the use of technology. You know, like I said, that nursery we went in yesterday had a mobile phone policy at the door. So just sort of educating them on those policies and procedures and making sure that they're aware of it. Even organising, you know, workshops for parents as well. You could organise workshops in the setting about safe use of technology, and, you know, they might not be aware of how technology is influencing their child in different ways. So just educating them, making sure they're aware of the signs and symptoms and things like that.
I think it's in my head I was like, yeah, like workshops would be great. And then it'll be like, tell them about safeguarding risk, tell them about mobile phone buses and
They'll
technology
come away
risk,
panicked.
tell them all of this risk, tell them why the enabling environments. And you know, you're like, actually, if you were to shove 20 parents in a room and to bombard them with all of this, they'd probably implode. You know.
There's I don't know if you've ever watched Motherland.
I've seen a couple of
TV
episodes.
series.
I haven't actually
There's an
watched it,
episode on
no.
there where they're talking about the risks, and they've got a police officer in talking to the parents, but he's talking about like drugs and
Yeah.
stuff like that, and then the teacher says, oh, this is actually a primary school, not a secondary
Yeah.
school, and he's like, oh right. And the parents are like, oh.
And I think that's it, you know, being aware of the level that we're in. You know, we are in early years, you are supporting children in early years. We don't need to be at this point giving them every single risk, but we do need to be talking to the parents, because there isn't, again, nowadays there's a lot more, but for a lot of parents, they haven't been given this guidance, they haven't been told these risks, they haven't been told the facts and figures around safeguarding and putting their child's school address and all the rest of it up on social media. They don't understand, they don't know what that is. So it is just those little things, and whether that's in the newsletter, just a reminder, being careful of cybersecurity, or being careful of school changes are coming up, or, you know, just kind of doing little bits instead of that bombarding with it all panic stations. And I think a good way for that is, you know, to have those like a little webinar, or to have something in a newsletter so that the parent can see it, or even just a poster outside, so when they're waiting for their child to come down at collection, they can just have a quick peruse of it and see it that way. They can take in what they want from it and research it further themselves as well. I think is quite important. So being aware of that and doing that themselves.
Yeah, I think some parents will be sort of more in tune with it than others.
Yeah,
it does depend, you know, like sort of what industry they work in as well. And we were having a conversation in the office a few days ago about whether we did prevent training when we worked in like different industries and things. And I remember like talking to my dad, and he said that he hadn't done it, and because he works like aerospace and things, and you know, so we're so hot on it, and we're so sort of knowledgeable on it, but you know, other parents who work in different sectors may not have any awareness of it at all. So it's just about
concept of it.
Educating them and not scaring them or anything, but just making sure that they're aware of it, so they can just look out for those signs as well.
Well, I actually have had this conversation with my now husband.
Plug that in there.
I'm practicing. About he actually had a situation a few years ago in work, and I said, I think you need to go and speak to your designated safeguarding lead. And he was like, my what?
Yeah.
And I was like, you feel like you sit there and you go, I feel like every company should have a safeguarding lead.
It's so embedded in our lives.
So
it's weird when we see that's not happening everywhere else. We're like, what? How do you not know who that is?
Exactly. Like, you know, they have HR or whatever, but is there a safeguarding person in every company? There's not, you know, and like you say, like people just don't.
It's really interesting.
Don't see it and don't know it, like especially not like we do, not like, you know, work in early years like all of us have in normal businesses.
It is crazy, isn't it? Talking of then, what training resources are there to use, especially if you're coming out of sector into early years or education? Where'd you start?
To everything we've spoken about, as always, we have got articles, blog posts, newsletters on our Showcase Training website. Also, as everything does come into safeguarding, we always promote the NSPCC website. But for you guys as practitioners in settings, I think it's there's actually a new initiative that I have researched, and I've seen some settings using it, is called Smarty the Penguin.
Oh, what's that? That's new.
So he's a little character. So this has been sort of created, and it's a collection of interactive stories. So it's mainly for 3 to 7-year-olds So it can be kind of used in a preschool age or reception. So listening to the stories, listening to or reading stories, so you can encourage children to read them themselves as well, together with an adult or teacher. Talking about what happens in each part of the story and discussing and joining in with it, but it's everything to do with security and safety online. So it's all about online safety. And the kind of key messages in each one. So I think there's about 5 stories to go through. And each one there's kind of a key prompt, or what would you do if this happened? So that's where the kind of interactive thing comes in, where it'd be what would you do if, or what would you say if, or who would you talk to if, and those kind of things. So that the children develop that understanding, and that they kind of gain that key message that they should always tell a trusted adult. Tell a teacher, tell a mum, dad, you know, talk to someone, or if something happens that confuses or upsets them, again, to talk about it to somebody and kind of get that clarification of it. But again, it's supporting children with online activity.
I like that.
How interesting.
Yeah,
that's a really cool thing. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, Smarty the Penguin.
Fabulous.
I do the safeguarding updates on the website, and sources I often use are, you know, Internet Matters and Ofcom. They do regular news stories and regular updates around online safety, and it's just, yeah, so interesting, you know, with the Online Safety Act and the updates in terms of that and things. So that's a really good source. So I do put that all on the website, so it's all on there as well. So yeah, make sure you make full use of that. I feel like I'm plugging it a bit, but use of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Shameless plug.
It's a deliberate resource. We want all of our learners, all of you listening, go and check out the Showcase Training website and the safeguarding page. There's so much material on there, in the newsletters, magazine, the web page. We give it all to you. Do read it. It's your CPD resource to go to.
Fancies off the job as well.
Absolutely. And it's free.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for tuning in today. We'd love to hear your thoughts on topics we've discussed, or answer any questions you might have about what we have discussed. Your input really helps shape our conversation.
Don't forget to like, share and follow this podcast to stay updated. And as always, let's keep the conversation about early years going. Until next time, take care and keep making a difference.